Hi, welcome. Let's answer some Qigong questions. All right, from episode 65 for Lawrence 6448. Hi, Lawrence. Adam, I know what you say, but I don't understand why when I go down to the lower center, the dantian, a movement came and I am back in the head. It's like a balloon with helium. I can't stay down. How could I do No, how could I do to stay in the lower dantian, please? Oh, that's a very good question because a lot of times people are really up, especially in the head, overthinking, especially nowadays with social media and the phone. And that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. So when they learn meditation to try to go into their lower center or that lower dantian, which has a lot of benefits, right? They have a lot of trouble doing that. It seems like they can't stay down there. That's what this question is saying. Please don't feel bad because that's a very common question I get all the time. It's very common, so you're not alone in this. It must be frustrating, right? Because you hear and read about all this idea of going into a lower center, and then when you try it, you can't do it. So, from a Taoist point of view, the answer is don't try, because it's like bouncing a ball, right? The more you push it down, the more it bounces back up, and that's something that you gotta take into account when you try to push all your intention and your energy down. A lot of time it bounces right back up, and the harder you try is like a trampoline, the more it bounces up. So instead of trying harder, stop trying to push your energy down, right? And a lot of people that collect techniques or they get attached to techniques, they do all sorts of forcing to get all the energy to go down, rather as diaphragm breathing, turtle breathing, kidney breathing, all sorts of different kidney methods. I mean, kidney method, a breathing method to get the lower section of the body to be coordinated and also to breathe from down there. That's one idea. Another idea is actually visualizing energy to move all the blood and all the energy to go down here. But as you said, you have a hard time doing that. You can't stay there. And the reason is like I said, it's like bouncing a ball. The more force you try to push it down, the more it's going to bounce back up under that circumstance. So it's not a good idea because you're going to get, like, even if you succeed, you're ending up kind of reinforcing and developing the habit that forcing things is the way to go. And that's not a good way to set that foundation, right? About 85% of your immune system is down here in the gut, as science has proven. So the idea of syncing your intention and your chi and your blood to go down there is a very important skill set. But the idea of forcing everything to go down there is not smart. So, from a non doing point of view, I think it's good to understand the relationship of four different elements or variables in your body. Number one, relaxing. Number two, rooting going down is what you're asking about. Number three, expanding. And number five is everything going into the center into one point. I think it was Tohei Sensei in Ki Aikido that talked about this, and he did a wonderful job explaining these concept that's in every single tradition, right? These four things are actually one thing. If you do one, all of them will happen at the same time. If you miss one, all of them will stop happening. But they're just different point of view, these four things of the exact same phenomena. If you're relaxing, naturally everything sinks. If you relax your body, that is, naturally everything sinks. If everything sink and root, naturally all the blood and all the energy will go into your lower burner. So that's number three. If everything is relaxing and going down, naturally it will sprout and expand. So expansiveness, relaxation of the body, going into your lower burner and sinking into the earth are four different point of view of the same phenomena of relaxing, you can say, right? So if instead of forcing everything go down into the center, if that doesn't work for a certain kind of personality, and I'm assuming you're that personality, if it doesn't work, then you're going to get that basketball effect where the harder you push it down, the more it'll bounce back up. That being the case, that means that going down the center doesn't work. You still have three other options, which is sinking, relaxing, or expanding. So if a student has a personality where pushing everything down to one point doesn't work, you can try the other three. So Hopefully that works. But if leading energy with your intention, you're having trouble with that, and it leads to forcing, then probably expanding and sinking also wouldn't work for you. I'm just guessing, but since pushing everything into the center doesn't work, I can't see how the other two will work. So what I suggest for you is just learning how to relax the body from top to bottom, like scanning practices, which belongs to so many traditions as a warm-up, right? It's very, very easy to learn in concept, and it's very easy to learn in terms of instruction to memorize. But don't overlook it just because it is easy to learn. Because even though it's easy to follow and easy to learn, it's actually not easy to get good at. By relaxing your body from up to down, you will find that eventually and naturally everything do sink into the center, since these four things we talk about are connected. So I hope that helps you instead of trying to force everything down. One of the reasons why it's so hard for people in modern times, I guess, to try to get everything that pushed down is because you're kind of conditioning and training your mind nowadays, probably all of your waking hours to go up in the brain, right? Whether you're typing and working or when you have leisure time, you're on your phone, a lot of screen time, a lot of strolling. We're kind of like a culture that's addicted to thinking. We don't know how to turn it off because we're constantly conditioning ourselves to be like this, right? When you end up meditating to try to cure this, and you try things like, hey, how do you go down into your center and spin the center or breathe this way or visualize that way? And you're trying all these different techniques and it doesn't work. One of the first thing is don't give yourself too much crap. You have to realize the modern age that we live in, that you're constantly reconditioning your mind, doing repetition and repetition to condition yourself to go up into your head. You're always in your head. So if you take that into account, you're going to have more patience. You're going to have more compassion towards yourself. That's why it's not so easy in a modern age. So if going into the center or sinking doesn't work and expansiveness doesn't work for you, if it gets to that point, then just try simply relaxing your body in the first few months. That alone will sink everything down because those four things are connected. They're basically different point of view or different layer of the same phenomenon. Second thing is, this idea of going up and overthinking produces an enormous amount of anxiety, cortisol stress hormones, and just chronic stress, right? That's one of the major reasons why people turn towards meditation and Qigong in the first place. So when you learn these things, it's also important to carry it into your daily life, right? So if you practice sinking and relaxing and expanding for, let's say, half an hour a day. Let's say you meditate half an hour a day. And then you get, the rest of the day that you're awake. Let's say you're awake for another, 16 hours. And you spend that 16 hours overthinking and conditioning your brain by using your phone nonstop or working or whatever, or reading a book, socializing. Then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because here you are spending half an hour turning off your brain and giving it a rest, and then you spend the next 15, 16 hours cranking overthinking up again, right? So you got to give yourself a chance by balancing your lifestyle a little bit. And in Taoism, one of the exercises is called fasting of the heart. Instead of fasting in terms of eating food, you fast with the mind. You watch your mental diet and you try to lower the stimuli. Now, obviously, in modern age, this is very difficult for most people to do for too many factors that we can't even go into in this short episode. But what you can try to do on your daily day planner, for example, is see if you can list the usual stuff you do and see if you're willing to cut out 2 or 3. And then maybe next week 3 or 4. Then the next week 5 or 6. Try to cut down mental stimuli to the best of your ability. But the stimuli that you cannot cut out, that you have no choice, see if you can watch your mental diet and not feed your brain things that causes too much of a dopamine spike, too much excitement or too much negative emotions. By watching what you read and what you watch and what you engage your mind with and replacing it with something more peaceful, that's first option. Second option is to remove the stimuli, period. By trying to do that a little bit at a time, you would notice that your chances of meditating well is a lot easier because you're not constantly practicing tensing your mind. So when you go and try to relax your mind by meditating, it becomes a lot easier because you're not setting yourself up for a fall, right? So this idea of fasting with the mind is really important to pair it up with cultivation practice. In this case, the basics of sinking everything into the center. Even though it is the basics, in most things, a foundation or the basic is actually the most important. So I'm glad you asked that question. Anyways, we're out of time. I hope that helps a bit. Keep me posted. Leave a comment below and let me see how you're doing, and then we can discuss it some more. For those that are interested in learning our methods for the standing, laying down, moving meditation techniques or Taoist Qi Gong techniques, you can join the Taoist community. Follow the links below. All right, guys, have a good night.